All right, very good. Welcome to the July 9th, 2024 Town University Relations Committee. My name is Nathan First. I'm the Vice President for Student Life and Enrollment at the University of Connecticut and chairing this meeting today. Of course, as you know, Mayor Moran and I co-chair this committee and come at this work together with all of you. So um, I think we have to do a roll call, is that right? Of the individuals that are on the committee. So we'll do a quick roll call of those present. So Mayor Moran,
Here.
Brian Aylesworth,
Here.
Brian Coleman. Oh, Brian. Dale Rose. Susanna Cowan.
Here.
Paul Aho. Aho, I'm sorry. I got my name's on there. Sean Vassington. Sean's not here today. Okay. John Armstrong.
Here.
Nick Lanza.
Here.
Jennifer Kaufman.
Here.
Kathleen Patterson. And Margaret Chady is not with us today. So, okay, very good. We have an opportunity for the public to address the committee. Is anybody here to address the committee today? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the meeting of May 14th, 2024. Any comments, revisions, edits to the minutes? Can I hear a motion for approval of the minutes?
Motion.
I move to
Motion.
approve.
Okay,
Second.
excellent. Any objections? I don't think we need to take a vote necessarily, so I think we're good to go there. Okay, very good. We kind of already did the welcome, but we do have I think the need to do a round of introductions, as always. So I think that's always good for us to get to know folks. And we have one individual that we want to introduce from UConn as well, and a returner, if you will. I don't know that you ever left, but so I introduced myself already, and we'll just go around the table this direction. And John, if you could introduce David as well, that'd be great.
Hello, everyone. John Armstrong, Associate Dean of Students, and currently the Interim Director for Office of Care and Concern.
Oh, and introduce David. Can you introduce David?
Oh, and David, would you like him to come up or just, and I'd like to also introduce David D'Alessandro, who is recently hired as an Assistant Dean of Students at UConn, who will be working specifically with off-campus students.
Jennifer Kaufman. I'm Director of Planning and Development for the town of Mansfield.
Kathleen Patterson. I'm the Acting Executive Director and the Senior Communications Manager for the Mansfield Downtown Partnership.
Great. Dale?
I'm a community representative on this committee, and I'm also a member of the Arts Advisory Committee.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mansfield.
Ryan Aylesworth, Town Manager.
Then we'll go to the online. Mayor?
Tony Moran, Mayor, member of the council for many years, and period.
Nick?
Yeah, hi. I'm Nick. I'm a Mansfield resident. I serve on the Region 19 Board of Education, and I'm on the committee as Director of External Affairs for the undergraduate student government at UConn.
And Susanna?
Hi, I'm Susanna. I'm one of the 2 community members on the committee. Also happen to work at UConn, but a long time. I think of it as a long time Mansfield resident.
Excellent. We also have Sergeant King here. I don't know if you want to say hello.
Sergeant King, I'm the resident state trooper supervisor for the town.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. We'll go into item number 4, updates on the agenda. So A, staff to staff meetings, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to share with the committee this month. I know we meet the first Thursday in July for our staff to staff meeting, and the way the first Thursday fell this month happened to coincide with the 4th, and so just kind of been having some offline communications, nothing really to be shared out from my standpoint for the good of the order, unless you have anything, Nathan.
Nothing from my end at this time. Great. So then B, Town of Mansfield Development Update. Jennifer.
As she runs back to her
Yeah.
seat.
I just wanted to make sure there were no participants in the waiting room. So we are still in our moratorium, which expires on August 31st. Many of you are probably aware that the Planning and Zoning Commission has initiated 2 zoning amendments. The first one is to repeal all of our multifamily, the existing multifamily housing regulations, and to replace them. So that would be the second. A zoning regulation amendment would be to replace it with what we call the Planned Housing Design District, which is a new, different way of doing zoning. Basically, when you're coming in with multifamily for 6 or more units, you would be coming in with a master development plan as well as a zone change. So I have been giving several presentations. I did a public Q&A. I went to the town council. I've been going to several boards and commissions, and we've been getting feedback. The public hearing opened in June, and it was we heard public comment, and it was the public hearing is continued to next Monday, July 15th. At which time we'll hear more public comment, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission is committed to having a workshop, and there will be no public comment received during that workshop, but the intent is to really assess what they've heard from the public, but also where they think they want to go with the zoning regulation. And while the public hearing is open, they could make some changes to the zoning regulations. So it is expected that the public hearing will close sometime in August, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission will then make their determination. And Paul Aho is our chair, so we've been discussing this a lot, so you can add in anything that I might have forgotten.
No, I think you did a good job. We're definitely bending over backwards to get as much input as we can before we make these changes. And I think we're in a good spot because some people say we're being too lenient and others are saying we're being too strict. So I think if everyone is dissatisfied, we may be going down the right path.
2 other updates in terms of development. We are working with the applicant for the villages at the villages. Sorry, I just came back from 2 weeks of vacation, so I'm kind of getting my head back in the game. But the villages, and that is the development that's immediately adjacent to the standard. They're in the process of pulling their zoning permit and pulling together all of that. So we expect that zoning permit will be issued in the next few months. And then down in southern Mansfield, you've seen the activity over at Champagne Motors. Those businesses, an Aspen Dental, Chipotle, and Five Guys will be opening sometime in the next few months as well. And that's all I have.
Great. Any questions? Excellent. Let's go to item C, Mansfield Downtown Partnership and Economic Development.
So I'm going to just say a few words, let Kathleen kind of jump in at the end here. But so we had a meeting, kind of a little brainstorm meeting shortly after Cynthia Van Zelm, the longtime executive director, left this spring, kind of just in recognition of the fact that, Cynthia being the inaugural executive director, really the only leader, the only face of the partnership that the partnership's ever known, that whenever the day came that Cynthia would leave, whether in this case take a new position or retire or whatever the case may be, that the town and UConn, the two partners in the partnership, would need to get together and I think just take a look at the model and figure out if there's any changes in terms of addressing future needs, meeting future economic development needs, all the needs of the downtown and the shared objectives that the town and UConn have. And so we making some progress with that. I'm in regular communication with Kyle Muncy, the president of the Downtown Partnership, and Kyle and I will be getting together, do some additional brainstorming, some discussion this week, and then re-engage with both Mayor Moran and Nathan, kind of open up that discussion a little broader. Moral of the story is we're just trying to, I think have some much needed discussion before we move forward definitively with any potential recruitment for the next executive director. I would say all, options are still on the table. It just makes sense again to have this discussion now and really think about what that future vision is and what that future need is prior to doing any sort of recruitment that's obviously based on what the model currently is. And so that doesn't mean that any changes are coming. And those, of course, need to be discussed with the board and all the other key stakeholders, but now's the time to have that discussion. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. But as the person who's serving as the acting director over the partnership, I want to turn things over to Kathleen for any updates you have, what you're seeing and hearing on the ground economic development wise in town.
Well, so far I have been really focused on the downtown event schedule because this is our busiest time of year, but we're starting to get through that and shift back into economic development efforts. The main thing that we're working on right now is with the town of Mansfield, a summer fun campaign. So promoting Mansfield as a summer destination. We often hear from our businesses that summer is a slow time of year, which is why we've traditionally focused our event schedule in the summertime. And then we're also doing this multimedia campaign. It started with a print production that was through the Chronicle. So we had distribution through Central Connecticut, through their parent company in Bristol, New Britain, and then in the Mansfield region. Mansfield was the featured article, the front page, and we just talked about different summer attractions and included a listing of all of the hotels and B&Bs there were so to encourage overnight stays. We're in the process of nailing down some social media posts promoting little things, like National Ice Cream Days coming up. So we'll post out highlighting places to get ice cream in town. And then the big thing is we're working with NBC Connecticut for a television ad campaign. The television ad piece has filmed and is under review. It will broadcast during the Paris Olympics. So if you're watching anything, including the opening ceremonies, which is when our ad will debut, we'll have a nice spot featuring the Adventure Park, the Yukon Dairy Bar, the Ballard Institute, and the Mansfield Drive-In as sort of like the traditional summer destinations. And then we are filming on Thursday a 5-minute piece that will be on Connecticut Live next week. It's called Connecticut Live. Our piece is not live, but it will air next week. And so we're going to try to highlight some more attractions such as our parks and preserves, all of our trails, not just the Mansfield ones, Joshua's Trust, Connecticut Forest Parks Association, and some other things like outdoor dining. So trying to just get the word out, we are a year-round destination, but specifically summer. So that's been the major focus the last couple of weeks, as Ryan knows.
Great. That's all very exciting. So any questions? All right, very good. So Sean's not here today for item number D, so no construction updates, although we did chat a little bit earlier about the new dorm is on track and dining hall to open up in the fall. So we're very excited about that at the university. As I shared with others as we were getting ready for the meeting, I had a chance to tour the dining facility the other day. It's gorgeous. It's large. We're waiting on furniture and things seem to be going right on schedule as far as I know. So we're very, very excited about that. It'll house 650 undergraduate students as well. So, and we'll be at capacity. We're very excited to fill that in year one. So I thought I'd share that as a part of the construction update since it is a construction project. All right, item E, campus updates and fall plans.
Can I ask a question
Yeah, for
about
sure.
so with the additional 650 students, will the population on campus be higher this year than last year?
Yes, and I
Okay.
plan to give that as part of the university
okay,
update,
right,
but that's
okay,
okay. So, yeah, we will have more students than ever before at UConn stores, and across all of our campuses. So,
And it'll be a higher percentage of the total students?
in terms of,
So will the people housed on campus be a higher percentage of the students living in this area compared to last year?
it probably is about the same. I haven't done that exact calculation, but with an increase of 650 beds and then total enrollment increasing a little bit more than that.
Okay. So
It,
percentage
the
could go
percentage,
down.
the percentage will, well, it'll be about the same. The numerator and the
Okay.
denominator will both go up in that
Okay.
calculation. So,
Okay.
yeah, otherwise, yeah, the percentage obviously would have gone up. So,
Okay.
mhm.
Hey,
But we'll get the exact calculations eventually. Yep.
excuse me, sorry, just to jump in, and this is probably for Sean. If you don't know, that's fine. I was just curious if there was any update on Mirror Lake and the possibility of using, I forget whether it was deferred maintenance funds or whatever Sean had mentioned as a potential to get more significant cleanup work done at the lake.
So that project, as I understand it, and I wish Sean was here because he would speak to all the details, but we'll have to wait until the next meeting to get that from him. But that project has been approved, not at the same scale as what it was initially, as I understand, but it will be done. And I don't want to speak to the details necessarily because I'll get them wrong for sure. So,
Wonderful. Thanks for that little update.
yep. All right, I'm going to toss it to John to start with the update, and then we'll come back. I have a few other things.
Thanks, Nathan. So I think I'll start back in August of 2023 when we made the announcement here at this town and gown meeting that the Office of Off-Campus Student Services would no longer be staffed. And part of that was due to a loss of folks that within my own department that had taken other positions. I was asked to step into a role that I'm currently still in, which is the interim director of care and concern, looking at threat assessment with our students at UConn. I've been doing that for the past year. Right around April, May, some discussions started to happen about that interim status. And we also were doing at the same time, unilaterally to that, is looking at and hiring an assistant dean in the Dean of Students office. And that Dean of Students position was specifically slotted to work with off-campus students in some capacities. The Assistant Dean of Students, that is David D'Alessandro, he's here with us today. So he has been hired. He was hired about a month ago. That was confirmed about a month ago, maybe a little bit more. And David has some experience back in his work in Colorado. Part of the discussions that we've been having are, is that enough to meet the need of what we were doing before? And the reality that we were looking at is it might not, because David's position as an assistant dean in the Dean of Students office will be working primarily with all of our undergraduate students in addition to students that are off campus. A way to augment that is I said I would be happy to come back and do some of that work. The majority of the work that I will be doing will be the community relations pieces that I was doing before, working directly with Stephen King, Sergeant King from Resident State Trooper's Office, Mike Nintu from Housing and Building Development, working with community and citizens in the area when there are complaints and responding to those complaints appropriately. Both of us will be doing all of this work in the same capacities. My primary role will be multiple. So I will have the role with off campus and I can do that. I also will be leading an initiative at UConn, starting parent-family engagement at UConn. So we currently do not have a parent-family engagement program. It was identified as a priority in 2022. And at this point, I will be leading that initiative as well. So my primary focuses will be working with off-campus students, working with David, starting a parent-family engagement program, and also continuing my work with the faith communities. So I made a list of things I think it might be helpful to talk briefly about, is that both David and I will serve as the point of contact for students coming to the Dean of Students office for off-campus housing questions and concerns, providing support to students seeking off-campus housing options on all of our UConn campuses. So we have a foothold in all of our campuses for off-campus housing. Collaboration with Town of Mansfield officials, state police, housing code enforcement, planning and zoning. Respond to community members' complaints through involvement of town officials to aid in the appropriate response and mitigated resolution. Outreach to students and when their actions result in neighbor complaints or police interventions. And then regular meetings and communications with property managers. That's a few of the things that we have taken from the portfolio of the office that was off campus and commuter student services. Given the current state, we're not going to be fully reinstating that office, but all of those services will fall under the Dean of Students Office. So with all of that said, I do not see any break in continuity of services that we were doing before, or any break in the way that we responded to issues off campus, or the way that we supported students on any of our campuses. So I'll stop there, Nathan, and see if there's questions. The other thing I will add before we take questions is the current role that I'm in, the Office of Care and Concern, the director for that role, the position has been posted. I will remain in that role as an interim director, serve in the other capacities as well until that director is hired. So we're looking at hiring someone, bringing them on board by September. That's our hope.
Great. Any questions for John?
So not a question, but I just want to say welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
You know, I myself, I've only been here 3.5 years, and so I don't have firsthand experience the way a lot of people do working with you and being an active participant in the tremendous progress that the town and university working together were able to usher along well over a decade. But I just know that, you know, you've made a tremendous impact. You've been deeply appreciated by all the stakeholders here in the town, John. And there was tremendous concern. Obviously, we expressed that to the university last summer when these changes were coming. And, you know, not to say that, you know, there aren't others that are capable of stepping up and providing this function. Getting the function back is, of course, valuable, but actually having the person come back with the function that we know and trust so deeply, it's just great news. And we also look forward to working with David, and I'm sure, you know, he'll be like a sponge picking up information from you. So couldn't have a better mentor in this, and we couldn't have a better partner in this. And you know, obviously Sergeant King and you were a formidable force, you know, working together and just looking to have the dream team come back. So.
You know, I will just say and add in that the work that we did, I started in 2012 and concluded last summer, was a passion of mine. I love the work that I did, and I'm very happy to be returning to this work. So I'm excited to come back to it. Also excited to start a parent-family engagement program. And I think the one thing that, if it gives anyone pause, how can such a small group do so much? It is possible. At larger institutions, one person can manage a parent-family engagement program with the right opportunity. So we're ready to jump back in, and David has experience in this area, and he's excited to be a part of it as well.
Mayor?
I just want to say that given that list of responsibilities, it would take a superhero to do them all. And clearly John has done most of them in the past, so I'm really glad he's back into that spot. I don't understand how any human being can do all of those things, however. And I hope your replacement is found very quickly, because you're spread much too thin.
I will say, Mayor, for the past year, during the academic year, the work of the Care and Concern world is the most active, and I continue to do all of the off-campus functions on my own. So there was really no break in that work. There was no break in the communication with faith leaders across any of our denominations. The only thing that will be added is the parent-family engagement. So I feel good about the fact that we can start this program back up again in a different way. And the Dean of Students Office is a great place to house this work. Nationally, this is where off-campus work and community liaison work is housed. It made perfect sense.
I'm glad you're going to be back. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Mayor. It's nice to be back.
I do hope our off-campus students behave, because if they don't, you're going to be truly tried.
Agreed.
We don't take your comment lightly, though, because we do need to keep tabs on making sure we don't burn our people out. And this is important work. And to John's point, I'm excited about this structure and having it be a part of the Dean of Students Office. I think it fits there. I think it fits with the student pathway. So when you think about the traditional pathway, students come in as 18-year-olds, they live on campus and benefit from that experience. Then they move off campus. A lot of times we discover challenges that students are facing early on in the process. And by having this be a part of the Dean of Students Office, we've already identified some of the students that are encountering those challenges by the time they move off campus. And so it's more of a continuum now, I think, than it being its own office. And so that for that reason, it's exciting. But you're absolutely right to be concerned about bandwidth. That's something that we need to keep our eyes on. I just want to thank the members of this committee and Mayor Moran and Ryan and everybody for expressing very transparently your concerns about the potential elimination of the services in the office of off-campus student services. I think it's just one of these examples where we don't get it right every time, and a decision was made, and it wasn't the right decision, and we have really worked to restore those services and bring them back, and be good supporters of our students as they reside in the community and good partners with the people around this table. And so that's what we're aiming to do with the things that we're doing in terms of having John come back and putting David into the role that he's in. So thank you to all here. John, welcome to David. So I'm very excited that we're at this point. It took us a year to undo that, but we got here. So any other questions or thoughts?
Can I make one other comment? And this
Yes.
is not directly about John. I did have a conversation with Michelle Williams the other day, and she informed me that there is now an assistant chief of staff or a deputy chief of staff, I'm not sure what the terminology is, who will have the responsibility for off-campus issues. And I will be meeting them both in the next weeks. So, but I gather that will be another person to add to the responsibility, to John's responsibilities or to our responsibilities.
No, actually, that individual is Phil Hunt, and Phil is coming home. Phil's an alum, actually played football at the University of Connecticut. So he's coming back home. He was a senior advisor to the president and actually registrar at University of North Dakota, I believe. So so he's coming back home. I actually spoke with him last night. He and his family are in town, and he's getting settled in. We'll start the job on Friday, or actually be in the office for the first time on Friday. We're very, very excited to have him. For those that remember Mike Kirk, under President Hertz administration, Mike was senior advisor to the president. Actually, is a role that he's held for some time, even under President Katsoulias' tenure and President Agbanubi. And now Mike is the vice president for communications. As Tyson Kendick, for anybody that knows Tyson, was a resident of the community as well. Tyson has left and moved on and gone to Carnegie Mellon University to be their vice president for communications. And so it's a little bit of shuffling around and things, but Bill's familiar with us. He's lived here before as an alum, and I think he'll be a great asset to the university, working in the president's office as the deputy chief of staff, working with Michelle. So I'm glad you were able to connect yesterday, Mayor.
Yes, we'll have more conversations.
Excellent. Just a few more updates from the universities, and actually I'm going to pass around.
I have a
Oh yeah, go ahead.
John, I'm so glad that you're involved in this until there's somebody in place. I've enjoyed working with you. Welcome, David. I have a question from members of the community that has to do with the nuisance ordinance. I think it's 135, and which states that it's up to the discretion of the officer, the police officer, who is looking into a disturbance at a house or renters, et cetera. And it's up to the discretion of the officer whether there will be a written warning or ultimately a fine. And I would like that definition of what that is, because as one of my neighbors checked for our famous residence in 44 Birchwood Heights, for the last 2 years, no matter how many times residents have contacted the police concerned about things, which included some property problems with people driving up on your lawn and trash, et cetera. There has never been one written warning
Mhm.
in 2 years. And then there were people from Davis Street who said the same thing. And I wanted to know what it means to, by the discretion of the officer, when we as residents put up with a lot of this inconvenience, noise, etc., for hours and hours and hours before we even contact the police. And then to find out there's never even been, in my instance and my neighbor's instance, a written warning in 2 years.
Dale, I'll refer to Sergeant King if he's able to come up and speak about that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I can't speak to the last 2 years, but I can say historically, what I have done and had my people do in the past, and especially under Sergeant Kenora previous to that, is the discretion of the officer is going to be a culmination of factors. How often we've been out there, have we received multiple calls, attitude and cooperation of the students, and size of the party and how loud it is. I can say personally, I like to issue the actual infraction, especially if it's a large party that we've received multiple calls on, something that's going to require, traffic assistance and helping ensure that those students are home safely before we can even depart. Something like that is typically going to result in enforcement action. As far as a written warning for that, for the town ordinances, there isn't really a written warning option that I know of, and that's something we could explore going forward. But it is a town ordinance, not a state ordinance, so that's not something I can change immediately. Certainly, if we do not take, the actual monetary enforcement action, what we do on our end is we have our computer-aided dispatch system. In our computers, when we go out to something like that, if enforcement action is not taken, we typically enter the renter's information, some general comments about what's going on. So if we are recalled to that same residence, the same night or within a short period of time, within the coming weeks for the party season, whatever, that we know that, hey, they've already received some attention from us without enforcement action. So if we're called back out again, can we, move forward and take, more severe discipline on that as far as actually issuing the town ordinance, or if we needed to make any sort of arrest via state statute.
Thank you. It's very frustrating for us in the neighborhood to realize that it's an ongoing situation, but there seems to be nothing that's happening actually to the renters to curtail their activities. I mean, we've had, this year it's been worse than last year, and this past year, and I see new ones moving in now. There was actually 3 days in a row where parties started at 8:30 in the morning. We didn't do anything in the daytime unless it was really outrageous, but then like I called at 1:30 in the morning, and all I got was, we're on it. But there are times when I don't know what that really means, because we don't see an officer out there, maybe are just checking to see what the status is of where the students are, et cetera. But it becomes difficult, Sergeant, because the students have a way to check if the police are coming. And therefore, we see them. They hide in the house, and the music goes down, the lights go down, everything. So it looks like, what, are we calling calling wolf so many times? But it becomes incredibly frustrating. I know that, we obviously during finals and all of that, that's going to happen. And so we sort of let that go. But I'll tell you, I mean, there are a number of my neighbors who are just saying, does it matter? Are we important enough to the town versus the renters? That's what it's becoming. So I don't know. I like the idea of maybe changing the wording in the ordinance, because unless something official happens, the behavior doesn't change. And then the landlord never gets contacted.
So I guess I would just jump in here and say, definitely appreciate the sentiments that you're conveying. And I mean, the short answer to the question you asked at the end is, the concerns and needs, expectations of our residents, our owner occupied, homeowners, taxpayers. I mean, the answer is no, that we, or the answer is yes, we definitely do care about. And we need, and if these concerns are, if this is something you're encountering on the regular, we need to address the situation, improve upon the situation. And so we'll, as appropriate, talk with the council about this if there's a need to revisit the ordinance, and I'll certainly talk with Sergeant King and continue this conversation. I appreciate you raising the issue, Dale.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm speaking for a lot of concerned neighbors who we now have another party house on our street. So there's like 3 major ones that are, you know, associated with fraternities and sororities. So they can't do things on campus. So their off-campus site, it just sometimes just gets out of control.
Absolutely, I really appreciate the comments, and please know that obviously the residents are very important to the resident trooper's office as well. I'll certainly make sure that you have my contact information, my email, especially as a representative on this council. If you want to give me a heads up on some problem areas that I can make sure I can have some directed enforcement or at least directed patrol checks to, you know, keep tabs on those things. But
Right.
please do keep the calls coming, because we do care, and the more information I have, the better I can deploy my resources and try to address those issues.
Okay, there's a drinking game that seems to be going from house to house with a portable table. And then they're, you know, shooting whatever they're shooting at and then drinking. And then you next see it down the street on another house, and then down in Monticello at another house. I don't know if there's a market for making the specific sizes of these tables, but you know, it get concerned when you see it on 195, and then those students are walking to come back towards campus, and you know, there's a corner, there's a curve there, and it's concerning about their safety in addition to our situation, to feel safe and that we can live in a quiet, harmonious neighborhood. Now, there are the other students. A third of our houses now are renters on our street, which has continued to grow. And I would say half of those seem to be fine. But it's the others that are just, it gets to the point where it's Friday and you're going, is it going to be another one tonight? And that's becomes stressful. And I'm just saying that. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And please know that we're starting to pre-plan and address the upcoming fall season. So we'll make sure we're working on it. Thank you.
And maybe just also important to note that the town is, we have budgeted for additional trooper coverage. We're continuing to add staffing in the office. There was a study, there've been multiple studies done over the years, but one a decade old now, I think, that the council fully embraced at the time to bring uniform staffing in the trooper's office up to 13. And again, that's a 10-year-old number. Certainly the needs and demands of the resident trooper program, policing needs in town haven't declined over the last 10 years. And so the council at a minimum has made the policy decision to commit to adding basically 1 trooper per year. So 2 more years of adding 1 to get us up to that 13 level. And then I'm sure there's going to be a lot more thoughtful discussion about ultimately what the staffing needs are beyond that 13 number, but we are, with the council's support, budgetarily looking to do that. And every little bit will hopefully improve capacity, as Sergeant King is alluding to.
Great. Any other questions about off campus? Yeah, Mayor Moran.
Yes. How does a resident know whether a warning has been or a ticket has been issued?
I contacted the town to find out if anything had been done at 44, and was told we have no record of any warning given. And my neighbors down the street who have a similar problem with another house did the same thing and said, well, then, you know, I said, okay, we need to then see what happens when we contact the university. And at what point is there a responsibility for those living off campus that are doing the kind of activities that they would not be allowed to be doing as a member of the on-campus community. So
So I have a series of questions about this. So the only way you know is if you call and if they have a written record somewhere. Sergeant King, do we have access when that call was made? If the response was from Troop C, would your troopers know whether or not that a response had been received, had been issued?
No, ma'am, unless there's a direct comment within, or like I said, our computer aided dispatch that a call was made or contact was made with the original complainant, I wouldn't know right off the hat. Obviously, I can do research on Monday as far as every weekend as far as seeing what events we responded to, what locations we responded to, but I may not have any direct information on whether contact was made with the complainant.
All right, so I think that part of the problem here is that nobody really knows. It's part of the problem with FERPA, that you can't find out whether disciplinary action was taken against a student because it's privileged information. But we really should see if we can figure out a way to communicate with the complainant about whether or not something has happened. Now, my second question is, Dale was talking about these as fraternity sororities. John, a while ago, there was an effort.
Tony, just so you know, your audio is cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you're.
Oh, God.
There we go.
I don't know whether it's my system or my machine, but anyway.
That fixed it, so.
Okay. You get to look at me up close. There was some work that was being done with the organizations themselves to police their own members. Has anything come of that?
Mayor, what I've done in the past is once we identify if the individuals with the complaint is where the house is located and the students that are living in the house are actually UConn students, part of that is getting their names. We don't have an active way to identify where students are living off campus unless I knock on the door, talk to them, get a name, and then compare that against a Greek roster. Keep in mind that not all Greek organizations that are active off campus are actually active on campus, that are current active fraternities on campus. So when and if possible, I will communicate with the director of fraternity and sorority life and look to have a meeting with that organization. So that will continue to happen.
Maybe you ought to take a look at who's on Birch Road.
Birchwood Heights?
Birchwood Heights, wherever this is.
Versus Birchwood Heights, right?
I don't know whether this is an issue of changing the ordinance, Dale. Part of the council's reasoning during that period of time when we were working on this ordinance is that we wanted to give young people in particular, a chance to learn so that they didn't get slapped with something immediately. And we also wanted to give the troopers the opportunity to reprimand people for activities that didn't fully warrant a fine, so that they could go and talk to people and decide whether or not to give written warnings or to assign a fine. But the intention has always been that there is an escalating penalty for groups. And I think what we need to do is to talk more directly with Sergeant King and members of the community to find out what is actually going on.
Okay, I see Brian has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I have, I'm a landlord and I don't have a lot of students in my houses right now, but I'm all for self-reporting as a landlord. Now, if I were to contact student affairs at the university and said, hey, I've got these kids, they're overcrowding in my house, they're playing beer pong and they're disturbing the neighbors. I have the lessor's names and provide you the names. Would the university do anything? And if it did, I think you you could probably get it out there to landlords start being self-reporting, because let's face it, the kids probably have an app, they have a police scanner, they know they're coming, they're gonna hide. Many of them aren't gonna get caught. Would the university be open to self-reporting in that way on behaviors of students in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think it's probably both of us want to comment on this one, and I'd say, yeah, I mean, if you call and any individual calls and cites another individual's name as a complaint, there would certainly be follow-up to that. And that's certainly something that you could do. We could have a conversation with the student. There's a variety of different ways that that could play out. I don't know that we would issue sanctions based off of just a verbal report, or more so we'd want to go off an actual incident report that we'd be responding to, which we do get when there's an instance of a citation or a fine or anything of that nature that comes through our community standards process, and then our team and community standards responds to that and engages the students in the disciplinary process. So definitely open to those kinds of referrals. John, I don't know if you'd add anything else.
Completely agree. And the other thing we can do, Brian, is a conversation. What I have found in the past is getting the whole house together, having a conversation. That conversation would include Sergeant King. It most likely would include one of my Nintu staff, myself, to talk about how their behavior is impacting those around them. Those conversations with a group meeting typically tend to have a lot of positive impacts on the folks living there. Most students living off campus are doing this for the first time, and the learning curve is steep. So really notifying students about how their behavior is impacting others has a significant impact on how the future of that behavior continues.
I'm curious if I know Dell wants to revisit the ordinance, and we've been beating this dead horse for a very long time, and I'm not discounting Dell's concerns. I'm just not sure how much more we can do. I'm just wondering, as a way to get it out there to the landlords or the renters, or make it part of a document that is given to a new landlord when they bring the house online as a rental.
I believe we already do that. There's a package that goes to a new rental that includes the ordinances.
Does it include self-reporting to the university?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, I would
What-
suggest that maybe adding that. I don't think you really have to do all that much to add that, do you?
If it's self-reporting to the university, we have a referral process. So it would be a matter of, if you have concerns related to student behavior on your property, you can submit a referral and provide the link. The reality with this also, Brian, is as landlords, you are the owner of the property, owner of the house. And we would also look to you as the landlord to take some action about curbing some of the behavior as well.
Of course, usually the next approach is contacting the parents and telling them they will not have a place to live if they continue, but I just want to keep that open line with the university as well, if the parents don't cooperate.
I believe that original packet, although I haven't seen it in several years, did include contact information.
Okay, but you're going to check, Ryan. So-
Yep, the mayor's right. These packets, to my understanding, we haven't discontinued this practice, and similarly, I was shown a copy, I think, shortly after I started in the building and housing office, but we'll brush up on the exact contents and have a discussion about any additional materials and information that should be added.
All right, any other questions on this? I think we spent a lot of time on it, but it's important. We want to make sure that we're responsive and hearing where there's concerns and following up. Yeah. No, I think that's the mouse. That's the cursor. It does. It threw me off earlier too, Paul. So, okay, there's a few other items that I wanted to share, and I'll do it more quickly than what I had originally intended, because I know we've been spending a lot of time on this agenda item, but we did distribute to everybody a list of activities and dates, key dates for the next 6 months, effectively, that are going on at the university. We have a few dates that are in there that have yet to be nailed down. So as we have updates and other details to share, we'll do that and communicate that out. But we have printed copies here, and I think it was distributed digitally to everybody. Just a couple to highlight. Fall opening and move in large scale will begin on August 22nd. We do have students that move on to campus before that in smaller numbers, but August 22nd is a Thursday is when students and their families will descend in large numbers, meaning that the fall semester begins on Monday, August 26th. Also included in the packet are key dates like the fall campus visit days, which we've formally referred to as open house days. Those obviously attract a lot of visitors to the area, which I think are notable for you all. Homecoming is on here. Family weekend is on here. We're planning already for Halloween and what that looks like in terms of activities for our students and being responsive to any concerns that may arise associated with that. And then the semester closes with formal classes ending on December 6th and finals the following week, December 9th through December 15th. So all those dates are in the packet. There's a bunch more information for your own general consumption. The other thing I would just mention, aside from this, and if there's any other questions, great. We are working on the housing assessment, which is something that I know we've talked about in this committee before with regard to specifically what's available for grad students, but we're trying to be holistic about that conversation and not just think about that population only, but also as we look at our enrollment plan in the coming years, what does it mean and what are the implications on demand for housing on campus versus what's being built off campus and how are these things interacting with each other? And we know ultimately that what we'll want to try to answer is to what degree are there affordable options for graduate students, accessible options. One of the things that our provost and I chatted about this morning was that a lot of our international students require housing that allows them to walk or ride a bike. And as we know, that's created some pedestrian issues in the community for us to be mindful of. And so we think about this going forward over the long term. We want to be mindful of having options for graduate students that are walkable, accessible for them. That's actually critical for us as we work to attract graduate students to the university and to the area. So that's something that is actively underway, and we hope to have more to share in a future meeting. So happy to answer any other questions if anybody has them. Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the litter reduction plan. So Mayor, do you want to take a lead on this? Or you want me
Sure.
to go?
Well, we can, all three of us can do it.
Excellent.
Nick Lanza representing student government, and Nate and I met to talk about possibilities for actively responding to litter issues. We talked about a number of possibilities. One of them is an Adopt a Road program, which a student organization could take part in. It turns out, after our meeting, Margaret Shady found that the town already has an Adopt a Road program through the Solid Waste Advisory Council. And we're going to take a look at the roads that have been adopted and the people who have been adopted them and see if they're still functioning and up to date. But there is such a volunteer program in town. But we are looking to find ways of encouraging student organizations to do Adopt a Road, which is a program which would have people responsible for stretches of road over the course of a year. The additional one is 2 Rid Litter days, 2 pickup days, one perhaps after Halloween and one in the spring, where we would organize people to go out and just pick up litter. And that could be done either by students or community members or both. It would be neat if it could be both. We also talked about the possibility for students and student organizations to get recognition for their commitment to doing this from the town and the town council in particular. So we're looking into all of these things, looking for student organizations who are willing to do this and looking into what the town offers and can offer. But it looks to me like we've got real progress on this front.
Yeah, very good. Comprehensive update there. I don't know, Nick, would you add anything?
Not really. I mean, just from my end, I'm in touch with some of the tier 2 organizations at the university, specifically Eco Husky, like anyone who's interested in sustainability issues. As the mayor mentioned, I think she had a really good idea of having a long-term, an organization that's going to be there long-term, year after year. I think that's a really important point she brought up in the meeting. And so just trying to find organizations, student orgs on campus that will that have a mission that aligns with making sure the trash is picked up, and then the sort of a rent the road or rent a piece.
Adopt the road.
Adopt the road, not rent a road. Adopt the road.
We don't rent our roads.
Yeah, no. I don't know why I said rent. For like the Greek orgs, I think would be beneficial as well. I don't know where rent came from, but yeah, that's
Excellent. Good. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
Is this, have these discussions included resident groups or younger student organizations? Or are we only focused on the university student population? Thinking mostly about, the mayor mentioned the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, but there's also the Garden Gate Club. There's a green team at the the elementary school. And then I believe there's a eco-centered group at the middle school, and it might be a nice intergenerational effort.
So I guess I would say from my, at this point, kind of outsider involvement in some of these discussions, I think when we had a quick debrief yesterday, I think we're looking to make this town-wide, kind of all of the above. I think, some of the focus on this stemmed from admittedly areas that are predominantly student rentals, northwestern part of town, off campus. So inherently, right out of the gate, there's kind of a focus of what can the town and Yukon do, given this shared interest, given that particular area of concern, if you will, with these litter issues. But very quickly, I mean, we can all think of there's no part of town where these issues just don't exist. And to your point, there's a lot of other groups, shared interest, alignment of values. And so while this sort of originated as sort of a town university discussion, and we definitely want that to be like a kind of a core part of this partnership or collaboration moving forward, to your sentiment, Kathleen, I think we definitely want to involve as many entities out there that have a shared interest, a vested interest in this, and make it townwide.
Great. Any other questions on item 4F, I think it was?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I guess, really, we have an adopt a road program, but the town also gets funding from the nip bottle deposits, the nickel. If that somehow could be geared towards summer help to do some litter pickup around town and around the university. And also, when I worked at the university, we had a great deal of community volunteers or community people who had to do community service. A lot of Yukon kids get in trouble for doing stupid things. Basically a lot of kids do. I mean, they're young and not aware of everything. So does anybody at the university directly manage the community service folks?
There's a lot of community service outlets available, and actually that's one of the things that we're working to follow up on with our Greek organizations who have a community service requirement, and to see if they would be willing to take on, as Tony mentioned, an adopt a road, or for that matter, even participate in some of the cleanup days. We wouldn't tie any type of sanction to cleanup necessarily in that way that you're describing it. I think that our avenue and approach here is one of being more proactive, and we know that this is probably more of a matter of getting the interested parties together. To Kathleen's point and question, that there are folks that care, there are folks that want to clean up and participate in this, and I think we just need to get everybody rallied around that and organized to do it. So the nip bottle thing, I think, came up last time. I think you might have asked about it the last time around. I think we determined that was not a substantial amount of money necessarily, but that you know, we know it's there, but I don't know, Mayor, if you would comment on that at all.
I think that the paradigm that we're using is volunteer cleanup. And maybe we could use some of that money for recognition or something, but I do know that it's all been allocated to solid waste issues, big and small. So it's a possibility, but you know, this is an ongoing project. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I'll just briefly add, I think the annual sum ends up being somewhere in the $30,000 range. And while what's being, you know, floated here in terms of use of those funds for this effort would seem reasonable and again in alignment with the sort of spirit of what those funds should be used for. The reality is, you know, we are using those funds for other laudable things right now that's being administered by a recycling coordinator, Ginny Walton, out of her office. And so just, you know, the old adage, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So you'd have to confront those trade-offs. If we redirected any portion of those funds to this, which could be a worthwhile endeavor, it would come at the expense of something else really, really good that Ginny's working on. So just have to remember that.
Okay, that brings us to item number 4G, other updates or progress to report. Is there any additional updates or progress to report? Hearing none, we'll go on to number 5, which I think is just our listing of future agenda items and conversations. The memo of agreement update is something that I know we have outstanding and that we want to work on. So
We'll get it done this summer.
Excellent. Very good. In terms of 5B, Mansfield Yukon Public Safety, pedestrians and drivers, I know that's an outstanding topic. We've had some conversations in the staff-to-staff meetings about, so that's been an ongoing one, and potential pedestrian paths and how that might happen and so on. I don't know if anybody would add anything to that one.
I have just one question. There's been some discussion about access to Moss Sanctuary. There have been days when both entrances on South Eagleville Road have been closed. Is the university paying attention to this? I mean, I'm just not sure what's going on.
I don't have any information about that, but I'll ask. I don't know if anybody else here does.
So when Mansfield Apartments, those were demolished and the construction for the redevelopment of that parcel took place, the town did relocate the main entrance to the Moss Sanctuary on 195. So now there is trail access on 195. And then we've moved the trail sign to the Birchwood Heights area, and there is a very small parking lot. But I know that when I had spoken with Robert Corbett and Sean Bussington, the university is committed to keeping that open once the construction is over. So or reopening the access from the 275 side. But right now there is no official access. You have to walk along the sidewalk along 195, or you could alternatively, you can park along Birchwood Heights.
Could somebody put a sign up that says access to Moss Sanctuary somewhere else? Because at this point, it just looks like it's closed.
Meaning, where would they put it?
Somewhere where people expect access to be.
So perhaps what the
Somewhere
mayor-
on the Mansfield Apartments
Right,
site.
there's the old access road loop that went through. And so I think what the mayor is saying is that if, you know, people that were accustomed to accessing it from there, if there was a sign where there's a couple cones and whatever on I guess what would be the western entrance, going kind of towards Station 107, maybe there where because I think I can't remember now if it's rocks or boulders or just straw wattles or what, but the other end of that loop road, the one that's closer to the intersection 195, that's more prominently kind of barricaded. But I think the other, whether it's just Yukon personnel or the general public, those cones or whatever kind of have been moved enough to suggest, you know, cars are welcome to go in there and kind of park where they had been and access the trail the way they had been. So I guess if it's Yukon's intention to not have that, then perhaps a sign, to the mayor's point, that says, you know, alternative parking for the Moss Sanctuary or access, off 195 or something like that.
I can talk to Sean or Robert Corbett
be
about doing some sort of signage. And I believe we have updated our website, but
Mhm.
again, you need to know where to look.
Yeah.
But yeah, we absolutely can do something.
Just to, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, though, I know that those conversations, which, I was from afar kind of part of, that was, I think at the time, though, when the expectation was this was a project that was going to be happening and moving forward. So I think really more globally, the question should be, if UConn's still looking to do the project, but the timeline is very open-ended and nondescript, and I would suggest that in the meantime, since you have this quasi-natural park-like setting that has emerged and you have parking, that until shovels are going in the ground and more work is being done, could we not allow parking back there? Maybe it's just the one end and you expect cars to turn around and come out the way they came in. But it seems that could be accommodated. That's a question for UConn, since obviously they control the property.
Right.
We can check. Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Question here because.
Can you
obviously-
unmute your microphone?
Sorry, because obviously I live right next to the Moss Sanctuary. Going through there the other day because I was smelling smoke and there was a fire, a campfire. Is that allowed?
No.
So there were several places where it was clear that campfires had been built in the Moss Sanctuary.
Yeah, that is definitely not allowed. And if you do come across that, it's in our parks rules and regulations, no fires are permitted. You should, if it's during daytime hours, I would call Parks and Recreation and
it's
evening,
a-
the state police.
Yeah, prohibited activity, state police would respond. Yep.
Okay, and so I was just wondering about signage. No campfires allowed.
Right. I believe on the main entry sign that has been moved to Birchwood Heights, I believe there are no
Mm.
campfires. It's small. I used to manage the parks in my old position. You can say no horses, no ATVs, no campfires. But I'm not sure people actually read those
Yeah,
signs, but I think.
I honestly say I haven't seen that on the
Okay,
sign.
we can check. I believe it's below. But 100%, if you see that, you should probably call the police, right?
Yeah. And that and dirt bikes. Now there's a lot of dirt bikes going through the Moss Sanctuary.
Yep, that's a perennial problem in many of our parks.
Okay.
Okay. Anything on 5B additional to note? 5C, I mentioned a little bit already as a part of the campus updates. Are there any other future agenda item discussions that we need to have? Then that just brings us to one more agenda item, which is adjournment. Before we do motion to adjourn, I just point out that the next meetings are scheduled for September 10th and for November 12th. So mark your calendars and we'll see each other then. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Have a great summer, everybody. Move to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
Excellent. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next time.
So there's really no consequence for those people at 44.
No. And the thing that's sad is, if even when the police do come and they're all like hiding